My insolent son said I should stay quiet at the reunion. So I brought the family secrets instead. Mama, shut up. You embarrass me every time you open your mouth. Those were the first words my son Connor threw at me as he parked outside the Tennessee reunion resort. The air in the SUV felt tight and stale, like the life he had spent years squeezing me into. He looked at me through the rearview mirror the way a man looks at a stain on his shirt, irritated, inconvenient, something he wished he could scrub out of existence. Vivienne, my daughter-in-law, followed with her usual venom. "If you want to help tonight," she said, sliding her lipstick away, "pretend you're mute. It'd be the only useful thing you've ever done." Her polished smile hid nothing but rot. I folded my trembling hands. I am 76, tired, weathered, but not broken. Once I was warm, kind, full of laughter. Now only their commands echo where my voice used to live. "Do not talk to anyone," Connor added. "Especially Aunt Evelyn. If she shows up, keep your distance. You ruined that relationship long enough." Ruined it. That was the lie he wrapped around my neck years ago like a collar. Vivienne scoffed. "Honestly, Connor, I do not know why we even brought her. She is going to wander off or say something weird, and people will think we do not know how to take care of our elders." Elders. That was the word she used when she wanted to imply I was slipping into confusion, when she wanted to justify why I was forced to live in their basement like some artifact no one wanted displayed upstairs. They claim they hate me for 3 reasons. Reasons they repeat like gospel to anyone who will listen. I ruined their wedding. I held back Connor's career. I drove Evelyn away from the family. Every one of those accusations was a lie, sharpened into a weapon because it made their mistreatment seem justified. The truth? They spread the story that I fainted at the wedding to steal attention. I collapsed because I had not eaten in 2 days. I had been cooking every dish they demanded, too afraid to say no. They told everyone I sabotaged Connor's promotions by calling his boss. I never had his boss's number. They hid the phone from me half the time. And Evelyn, dear Evelyn, they claimed I poisoned her against them, when the truth was I had not been allowed to speak privately with her in almost 20 years. They held my phone. They screened every call. To contact Evelyn, I had to beg. And every time I begged, they weaponized my desperation. "She is acting dramatic again," Vivienne would sneer. "Mom, stop being pathetic," Connor would add. "You are not allowed to call her unless we approve it." If I reached for my phone without permission, they took it for days. If I asked to send a letter, Vivienne checked it first and shredded anything she did not like. They did not want Evelyn knowing what they were doing to me because Evelyn would have stopped them. Evelyn was my childhood friend, my sister-in-law, the only one who remembered who I once was. My husband tried to tell her he left everything in my name after seeing Connor's cruelty, but cancer took him first. She never knew. I stayed silent until the SUV door slammed and Connor walked away without offering a hand. I reached for my purse, but Vivienne snatched it first. "I will carry this," she said. "You tend to drop things. Honestly, Sylvia, just try not to embarrass us tonight. Think of it as repayment for all the trouble you caused." Trouble. That is what my existence had become in their eyes. The resort glittered with warm yellow lights, and I saw families hugging, laughing, welcoming each other. That glow did not reach me. I was only here because they wanted to show off a dutiful son who brought his aging mother along. I was a prop in their story, nothing more. As we walked toward the entrance, the sky over Tennessee dimmed into an early evening blue. Vivienne leaned close to Connor and whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "She better not talk to anyone about the house. She does not even understand it is not hers." My steps faltered. Not mine? My husband left everything to me. They had locked me in so long they believed they had rewritten the truth. I said nothing, not because they asked me to be silent, but because silence had become its own kind of blade. And I felt that blade sharpen inside me now, inch by inch. 2 decades of confinement. 2 decades of being treated like a burden. 2 decades of swallowing words so bitter they scraped my insides raw. As we neared the entrance, Connor stopped and turned to me with disgust plain on his face. Do you hear me? Do not open your mouth tonight. You have embarrassed me enough for one lifetime. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized something chilling. I had been afraid of losing him for years, but he had been gone long before tonight. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. He snapped his fingers in front of my face like I was a dog. Did you hear me, Mom? No talking. I lifted my chin, just slightly. I have been silent for 20 years, I said in my mind, though not aloud. And it was my silence that fed the monster you became. They thought tonight I would obey. They thought tonight would be another humiliation. They thought I was still the woman trapped in their basement. But they forgot one truth. A woman who has been quiet her whole life always knows exactly when to speak, and I was done being silent. The basement never felt like part of the house. It was a holding space where unwanted things were kept until they stopped mattering. Cold seeped from the concrete floor, the ceiling so low I sometimes had to bend. No windows. Just a dented metal door they locked whenever they needed quiet. My bed was a sagging cot beside the water heater. Its clanging pipes sounded like distant thunder. The dim bulb flickered as if even the light refused to stay with me. They never gave me a key or a thermostat, only conditions. Even calling my oldest friend required permission. "Can I call Evelyn?" I asked one evening, clutching the edge of the staircase railing for balance. Vivienne did not look up from her glass of wine. "Why? Are you trying to remind a billionaire you exist? Do not bother her. Old people always think they are more important than they are." Connor chimed in from the couch without lifting his eyes from his phone. "She gets embarrassed when you call. You make us look cheap, Mom. Do not put her in that position." Cheap, embarrassing, demeaning. Words they tossed at me like scraps to a dog at the back door. What made it worse was the hypocrisy. Evelyn and I grew up in the same shack, small Tennessee town, dirt floors, patchwork roofs, clothes handed down until they were transparent. My brother-in-law Jonathan, the man I married, was also born poor. We climbed out of poverty alongside them. Evelyn worked her way into wealth through relentless effort. She deserved every cent she earned. Yet when Evelyn rose high, she became inspiring. When I stayed grounded, I became pathetic. Same background, different judgment. To them, Evelyn was a symbol of success. And I was a reminder of where they refused to admit they came from. The absurd reasons they used to justify hating me grew more ridiculous with time. "You stressed Jonathan so much you made his cancer worse," Vivienne once hissed. As though cancer had anything to do with me loving a man through the darkest illness of his life. "You drag this family down," Connor said. "People think I come from low-class stock because of the way you talk." They wanted me polished, but not too polished, because if I sounded too sure of myself, they accused me of putting on airs. When they insulted Evelyn's childhood, Evelyn was an exception. When they insulted mine, I was the problem. Over the years, they used my past like shackles, each insult another link in the chain meant to keep me quiet. The worst wound still came from a memory I cannot scrub out of my mind, the day of Connor and Vivienne's wedding. Vivienne insisted I wear black. I told her gently that black at a wedding felt wrong, that it looked like mourning. She smiled at me with those perfect veneers and said, "Exactly." She wanted me invisible, forgettable, a backdrop piece no one would remember. Then she sent me to help in the kitchen, telling me I did not have the face for photos. When I refused, trying to hold on to the last shred of dignity I had, she and Connor twisted the story into something ugly and fed it to the whole family. Mom tried to ruin our wedding. She made a scene. She wanted attention. I had stood silently in the back row, smiling through tears as I watched my only son exchange vows. I had not ruined a single thing. But silence does not protect you when people are committed to rewriting your part in their story. The more I resisted, the tighter their control grew. They started monitoring my calls, then my texts, then my mail, then my movements. Whenever I tried to call Evelyn, Vivienne would snatch the phone out of my hands. "What are you trying to do? Complain? Cry? Manipulate her? She does not need your sadness, Connor would add. If she hears your voice, she will pity you. And pity is humiliating. Stop it. They feared only one thing, that I would tell Evelyn the truth. She was not just my childhood friend. She was Jonathan's sister, the woman he trusted with everything, except the final update of his will words he never managed to share before cancer took him. If Evelyn learned how Connor and Vivian treated me, how they locked me away, mocked me, starved me of affection, and cut me off from the world, she would have torn down every wall to reach me. They did not hate me for anything I did. They hated the truth I carried, the truth that threatened the fortune never meant for them. So the basement door stayed closed, the cold creeping under the stairs as time shrank into dim light and thin blankets. But every night I whispered a promise rooted in childhood, two girls under a pecan tree, swearing sisterhood forever. If one of us ever gets locked away, Evelyn had said, the other one will find them. No matter what. I whispered into the basement walls, my voice barely more than breath. Evelyn, I said. I am breaking the door soon. The reunion hall sat on top of a Tennessee hill, a sprawling lodge with polished wood floors and chandeliers that pretended they belonged in a palace. Cars lined the gravel road like a parade of polished egos. Inside, people laughed loudly, hugged theatrically, and pretended they had always loved one another. In the middle of it all stood my son Connor and his wife Vivian, my captors, dressed as caretakers. The moment we walked inside, their hands transformed. In the car, Connor had shoved me forward and hissed in my ear, "Do not open your mouth tonight. You embarrass me." Vivian had added, "If you want to help, pretend you lost your voice. Best contribution you will ever make." But here, in front of the family, their hands suddenly became eager props. Connor draped an arm over my shoulders as if he had ever held me with affection. Vivian adjusted my collar like she had not thrown most of my clothes into donation bins without asking. "Oh, everyone," Vivian sang, waving grandly as relatives turned toward us. "We brought Mom. We take such good care of her." Good care. The words scraped at my ribs. "She lives with us now," Connor announced proudly. "We handle all her meals, medications, doctor appointments." I almost choked. Connor had not accompanied me to a single appointment in years. I scheduled everything myself quietly, online when they allowed me internet access. The crowd murmured with approval. Someone whispered, "Such devoted children." Another added, "Not many kids would sacrifice so much." Sacrifice. I felt the basement walls in the back of my mind. I tasted the metallic air of that locked room. I felt the ache of asking permission to call my best friend. Sacrifice. Vivienne leaned toward the group, lowering her voice dramatically. "She is getting forgetful. Bless her heart. Sometimes she imagines things. Imagines things. As if 20 years of gaslighting could be dismissed with a single, delicate lie." "She gets confused," Connor added. "Thinks people are hiding things from her. We do our best to keep her grounded." Grounded. Another word for silenced. Another word for erased. I stood behind them, swallowing the sting as they performed their lies for sympathy and applause, waiting for Evelyn's approval. Then the crowd parted, and she appeared, tall, steady, elegant. A woman whose presence quieted the room without effort. My Evelyn. The one truth they could never manipulate. Connor's face lit up like a child expecting a present. "Aunt Evelyn," he exclaimed, almost running to her. "We were hoping you would make it. It means the world to us." I wanted to laugh. The last time he saw her, he asked me to cancel the visit because rich people do not like sad houses. Evelyn's eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. For a second, just a second, I saw something flicker there. Recognition, worry, a shard of anger buried under control. She walked straight toward me. "Hello, Sylvia," she said softly. I felt heat surge behind my eyes, but I nodded. "Hello, Evelyn." My voice felt like it was clawing its way through barbed wire. Vivienne stepped beside her, smiling too wide. "She is doing so much better under our care. She has episodes," Vivienne said, lowering her voice in a rehearsed whisper, barely confused. I wanted to rip the sentence apart, word by word. Connor puffed out his chest. We always put her first. If hypocrisy had weight, the floor would have cracked beneath him. Relatives began to gather around Evelyn. They asked for stories, updates, blessings, as though she were the sun, and they were plants bending toward her warmth. She handled every interaction with that calm authority I never stopped admiring. When the dinner bell rang, people moved toward the long tables. Evelyn stepped onto the small platform by the fireplace and tapped her glass. The room fell quiet instantly. Her voice carried with ease. Tonight is not about money or status. It is about truth. This family has survived poverty, illness, betrayal, and loss. But survival means nothing if we lie to each other. Connor leaned slightly toward me and whispered through his teeth, "Do not make a scene." I kept my gaze forward. Evelyn continued, "I want to try something different this year. I want one person, just one, to stand up and speak the truth. No masks, no rehearsed gratitude, just honesty." A ripple went through the room. People shifted. Nervous laughter bubbled. Vivienne pressed her nails into my arm. "Do not," she whispered. Connor leaned closer. "If you speak, everything gets worse for you. I promise that." And for the first time in 20 years, I turned my head and looked directly at him. He froze. There was no trembling in my voice when I spoke. "I think," I said quietly, "I will stand." A hush fell so hard the air itself felt stunned. Vivienne's face was drained of color. Connor's lips parted, but no sound came out. Even the candles seemed to hold their breath. Evelyn met my eyes, and in her expression I saw something I had not seen directed toward me in years. Permission. "Come forward, Sylvia," she said. My knees trembled, but not from fear. My heart hammered, but not from doubt. I stepped through the crowd as whispers chased my heels. "Behind me," Connor hissed. "If you say anything, we will." I did not turn back. I did not flinch. I did not bow my head. I walked until I stood beside Evelyn, facing the family that had been fed lies for years. "Go on, Sylvia," she said gently. "Speak." I opened my mouth. And the entire room leaned in, hungry for the truth I had been forbidden to tell. This was the moment my silence began to crack. And somewhere inside me, where dignity had been sleeping like a wounded animal, something rose on its hind legs and sharpened its teeth. Before I spoke, I let the room settle for one heartbeat more. Then, without trembling, I began. And this was where everything broke open. The moment I stepped forward, I felt Connor's hand clamp around my wrist like a trap snapping shut. His fingers dug into my skin with quiet, practiced cruelty. The kind that leaves no scream, but always leaves a mark. "Sit down," he hissed, breath hot with panic. "If you open your mouth, I swear you will regret it." He squeezed harder, hard enough that the bones in my hand ground together. A bright, sharp pain shot up my arm. I did not flinch. I had endured worse in silence. This was nothing compared to 20 years of suppression. Vivienne slid in behind him, her voice low and sweetened with venom. "Just remember, old woman, if you speak, I will make sure every sip of water you take for the rest of your miserable life requires my permission." The hall hummed with conversation, but we stood inside a small pocket of stillness, one that reeked of fear, not mine but theirs. I looked down at Connor's hand on my wrist and spoke softly, but clearly, so only he could hear. "Let go." His grip tightened. "Mother, sit. Do not make me force you." And then something inside me, not anger, not defiance, something older, deeper, clicked into place. "No," I said. One word, quiet, simple, but it felt like cracking open a sealed vault. The sound of it surprised even me. It was the first time in 20 years I had chosen not to obey. I pulled my arm free. Connor's eyes widened not from pain, but from the shock of losing control. A murmur rippled through the tables as I continued toward the fireplace where Evelyn stood waiting. Vivienne grabbed at my elbow, her nails grazing my skin. "Sylvia, stop. You are confused. This is not your moment." I turned and faced her fully for the first time since she married my son. I am not confused. My voice carried farther than I expected. Conversations paused, heads turned. Vivian's smile faltered. You are confused. She emphasized every syllable, weaponizing condescension like she always did. Sit down before you embarrass the family. You know how you get when you are overwhelmed. Overwhelmed? I repeated quietly. Is that what you call being locked in a basement? Gasps shot through the room like sparks from a live wire. Vivienne paled. Connor stepped forward quickly, hands lifted, trying to salvage the situation. Mom is having one of her spells. She gets like this when she forgets her medication. A few relatives nodded sympathetically because people always choose the simplest lie over the hardest truth. But then Evelyn spoke. Let her talk. Her voice cut clean through every whisper. It had that rare quality authority born from certainty, not ego. I faced the room. My heart beat steadily, not fast. It felt as if the silence of 2 decades had condensed into something sharp enough to pierce the lies scattered around me. I have not forgotten my medication, I said. I have not forgotten anything. Vivienne barked out a brittle laugh. Of course you have. You barely remember what day it is. I ignored her. I have lived in a locked basement for nearly 20 years. The silence became a living thing, heavy, stretching, listening. I was told I was too embarrassing to live upstairs, too noisy, too poor, too backward. I paused. I was told I ruined their wedding because I would not wear the black dress she picked out for me, the one meant to keep me out of every photograph. Vivienne shot forward. That is a lie, a complete lie. No, I said. A lie is what you told everyone that I refused to help, that I made a scene. The truth is, I worked in the kitchen because you said guests would judge Connor for having a mother who did not match your standards. Eyes widened across the room. Forks froze midway to mouths. Connor moved beside her, jaw clenched. She is imagining things. She does that. Do not listen to her. I continued as if he had not spoken. They said I caused Jonathan's stress, that I worsened his illness, that my voice cracked but did not break, that I drove him into the grave. Someone in the back whispered, horrified, "Good God." Evelyn stepped closer, her expression tightening not with disbelief, but with something personal and jagged. And they said, I added, that you, Evelyn, would not want to hear from me because you were ashamed of me. Evelyn inhaled sharply. Vivienne stiffened. Wow, she said loudly, adopting a high, brittle tone. Our poor dear Sylvia is slipping. Bless her heart. Connor attempted a sympathetic smile. She confuses dreams with memories. She used to be sharp, but Connor, Evelyn said, her tone suddenly glacial. Stop. He froze. She turned to me fully, her eyes searching mine. Not my face, not my clothing, not my age me. The girl she once braided wildflowers with. The woman who once stood beside her when she married her brother. The friend she lost without explanation. Did they stop you from calling me? Evelyn asked, her voice tight. Yes. Did they take your phone? Yes. Did they tell you I wanted nothing to do with you? Yes. Her jaw locked. A storm gathered behind her eyes, quiet but unstoppable. Connor tried to laugh it off. Aunt Evelyn, come on, Evelyn fixed him with a stare that could slice marble. Be silent. Connor shut his mouth. Vivienne sputtered. You are not believing this, are, quiet, Evelyn said without raising her voice. Vivienne fell silent like a puppet whose strings had been cut. I took a breath. And, I said, projecting my voice to every corner of the hall, I have proof. Silence struck the room again, this time trembling. Electric, expectant. Connor shook his head violently. No, you do not? Yes, I said simply. I do. Vivienne lunged forward, her face twisted. You crazy old Evelyn stepped between us, her posture tall and controlled. Enough. Vivienne fell back, as though the force of Evelyn's authority physically pushed her. I reached into my coat pocket. The room held its breath. For 20 years, I said softly, you told everyone I was losing my mind. Connor's eyes widened. Vivienne blanched. I pulled out a small flash drive and held it between my fingers. But it was the only thing they could not take from me. A shiver rippled across the hall. I looked at Evelyn. "Are you ready to hear everything?" She nodded once, slowly, her eyes burning with fury and recognition. "Then," I said, lifting my chin, "let the truth speak." And the whole room braced itself, because the storm I had held back for 20 years had finally found its voice. I had rehearsed this moment through 1,000 silent basement nights, yet when it finally came, I felt calm, steady, as if every trembling year had braided itself into one unbreakable thread. Evelyn stood beside me, composed but burning with quiet fury. The room was so still I could hear the ice melting in someone's untouched glass. All eyes were fixed on us as I reached for the silver bracelet around my wrist, Jonathan's last gift, worn every day since he died, because it was the final warm thing he ever placed on my skin. The clasp was old, tarnished, ignored by everyone. Not Vivienne, not Connor, not even Evelyn. But today she watched closely. I opened the hidden latch Jonathan built himself. A tiny black USB slid into my palm. The room gasped. Connor paled, Vivienne stumbled back, Evelyn's eyes shone. I held the USB in my palm and whispered, "Jonathan put this there. He told me it was a reminder to keep something safe." I did not know what it truly was, until now. Evelyn reached out and took it gently, as if touching something sacred. "Where can we play it?" she asked quietly. Jackson, our cousin, an attorney with a reputation for precision, stood up from the table. "There's a projection set up in the lodge office," he said. "I'll bring a laptop." The group moved as one toward the back room, every shift of a chair, every rustle of clothing, sounding amplified in the silence. I walked at the center of the crowd, Evelyn on my left, Jackson on my right. They thought Jonathan died without finishing the estate paperwork. They never imagined he hid anything in the bracelet. Connor and Vivienne followed several steps behind, whispering furiously, their faces drained of color, as though they were marching toward their own sentencing. Inside the office, Jackson plugged the USB into his laptop. The screen flickered, then brightened. A video file appeared, just one. Dated 13 days before Jonathan died. My breath caught. "Play it," Evelyn whispered. The video opened, and there he was, Jonathan. Thinner than I remembered, his eyes sunken but still warm, always warm. He sat in what looked like the hospital room, wearing a pale blue gown. Machines hummed softly behind him. He lifted a trembling hand toward the camera, managing a faint smile. "Evie, Sylvia," his voice cracked. "If you're watching this, then I didn't make it." Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. I felt tears burn behind my eyes but refused to blink. I had to see every second. Jonathan inhaled slowly, painfully. "I don't know how much time I have left, so I'll be brief. I'm updating the will. The new documents are on this USB." He lifted a folder toward the camera. "And I need you to know why." He looked down for a moment, gathering strength. "Connor." He closed his eyes. "My son has changed, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's the pressure, or Vivienne, or something darker. But he has stopped being kind. He has stopped being the boy we raised." A ripple of murmurs shook the room. Jonathan continued. "I've seen the way he speaks to Sylvia when he thinks I'm asleep. I've heard the things he accuses her of. I've watched him twist stories to make her look small." His voice shook with anger he had never allowed himself to show. "I fear what will happen when I'm gone." Vivienne suddenly shouted, "This is fake! It's edited! Deep fake! He never—" "Quiet!" Jackson snapped. Jonathan lifted his gaze to the camera again, eyes burning with protectiveness. "I want Sylvia taken care of. Truly taken care of. Not trapped, not silenced, not controlled. I know you, Evelyn. You're the only one I trust." A weak smile broke across his face. "I've left everything, my savings, the land in Crossville, the old cabin, the investment accounts in your name temporarily." Evelyn staggered. Her knees buckled slightly, and I caught her hand. Jonathan nodded faintly, as if speaking directly to her. Keep it for Sylvia, until she is safe, until she is somewhere she can live freely. He swallowed hard. If she wants to move in with you, take her in. If she wants to start over, help her do that. Whatever she chooses, protect her, please. His voice cracked. His eyes closed. He whispered, I love you both. The screen went black. Silence blanketed the room. Not cold, not cruel, reverent. Jackson opened the second file, the updated will. The legal language appeared crisp and clear. Executor, Evelyn Hale. Primary beneficiary, Sylvia Hale. Secondary instructions. Connor is to receive nothing until he demonstrates ethical behavior toward his mother. A line that made gasps ripple through the group. Jackson read it aloud, his voice steady. This document meets all requirements for a legally binding handwritten and video-backed last testament under Tennessee law. The signature matches Jonathan Hale's registered signature with the county clerk's office. Vivian snapped. Forgery, it's obviously a setup, she tricked him. Vivian, Jackson interrupted, his voice sharp enough to cut steel. This is legally binding. Connor finally exploded. This is insane. That old woman manipulated him in the hospital. I turned to him and spoke quietly. Jonathan recorded this when you were out buying the suit you wore to the funeral. The room erupted. Whispering, disbelief, shock. Connor stumbled back, his face white. Vivian looked like a chandelier had shattered above her head. Then Jackson straightened, pulling his phone from his pocket. I'm calling the police to begin the financial recovery process, and we'll be freezing every account associated with Jonathan's estate until this is sorted. Vivian shrieked. You can't. Oh, Jackson said, dialing. I absolutely can. As the call connected and Jackson identified himself, the room seemed to tilt. Vivian's confidence collapsing. Connor's entitlement hollowing out completely. For the first time in decades, the weight shifted off my shoulders and landed squarely onto theirs. Connor whispered, Mom, please, you wouldn't let them take everything. I looked at him, really looked, and I felt nothing but clarity. You took everything first, he broke. And for the first time in 20 years, I did not. For a long moment, after Jonathan's final words faded from the screen, the room felt like it was holding its breath. Not a sound moved, not a chair, not a whisper, not even the hum of the projector seemed real. I could feel the weight of 2 decades sliding off my spine, leaving me standing taller than I had in years. But the truth wasn't finished. Not yet. I reached into the small embroidered pouch I kept tucked inside my cardigan. It had once held my sewing needles, back when my hands were still steady enough to mend Connor's school shirts. Now it carried something far sharper, a second USB. This one heavier, colder, deadlier. I set it on the table. Conversation stopped mid-breath. What is that? Jackson asked quietly. I met his eyes. Proof, I said. The kind they cannot twist. Connor froze. I saw fear flicker behind his eyes, not guilt, not shame, but fear of losing control. Vivian's lips parted, then tightened like a trap. This is ridiculous, she hissed. Haven't you humiliated us enough? I slid the USB across the table. You haven't seen humiliation yet. Evelyn placed her hand gently over mine, as if silently telling me she was with me now, really with me. Then she turned and nodded for Jackson to plug the USB into the laptop. The screen lit again. Camera footage. My basement camera footage. The audio crackled before sharpening. Connor's voice filled the room. Get back downstairs, old woman. You don't come up unless we say so. A murmur rippled through the relatives, this time disgust, not shock. Next clip. Vivian stood at the top of the stairs, arms crossed, smirking. Why should I let you call Evelyn, so you can cry about how you live in a basement? You think she cares about you more than her billion-dollar company? The clip cut to another angle, the hallway camera I hid behind the dry food cabinet. Connor shoved a stack of mail into his jacket. Hide anything with her name on it. The medical stuff especially. If she applies for assistance without us, we lose the benefits. My chest tightened, not with pain, but with vindication. Next clip, Vivienne signing loan forms with a slanted, shaky version of my signature. That looks close enough, she said, giggling. She's old. They'll believe she forgot she signed it. The room erupted in horrified whispers. But the next video was worse. Vivienne leaned forward, speaking to a young man I recognized only vaguely, one of Evelyn's nephews. Her voice dipped into a purr. "If you help me get a position at Ellington Holdings, sweetheart, I'll make sure your career skyrockets. All you need to do is make Evelyn feel like I'm family. Say I'm hardworking, loyal." She winked. "Whatever she wants to hear." The nephew in the footage recoiled, clearly uncomfortable. The room gasped. Evelyn's face tightened, not with anger, but with lethal disappointment. When Evelyn was angry, she was loud. When she was disappointed, she was a storm. Then the final video loaded. Connor, pacing my basement doorway, whispering angrily into the phone. "Her retirement money is nothing. If we drain it slowly, she won't notice. And if she does, we'll say she signed something and forgot." His voice dropped lower. "If she ever tries to talk at a reunion, I'll make sure she regrets it. She thinks she has rights she doesn't." A collective gasp. A few relatives even stepped back, as if the screen itself had turned poisonous. Connor shot to his feet. "Turn it off. This is taken out of context. This is—" "It is exactly in context," Jackson said sharply. Before Connor could bolt, before Vivienne could fake a fainting spell, before their mouths could spill another lie. Two uniformed officers entered the room. Their badges flashed gold in the low light. A third officer followed, carrying a folder thick with printed financial statements. "Vivienne Morel Hale," the first officer announced. "You are under arrest for fraud, identity theft, falsifying medical assistance applications, and financial exploitation." Vivienne staggered backward. No, this is a joke." The second officer read from another sheet. "Connor Hale, you are under active investigation for elder abuse, unlawful confinement, and misappropriation of protected funds belonging to Sylvia Hale." A wave of murmurs crashed through the relatives, some in disbelief, others whispering, "I always suspected," or "I knew something wasn't right." The officer reached for Vivienne's wrists. She shrieked. "Don't touch me! Sylvia, tell them! Say you're confused! Say something!" Connor fell to his knees, grabbing my sleeve with shaking hands. "Mom, please help me. Tell them you're sick. Tell them you imagined things. Please, I'll be good. I swear, I'll be good." I looked down at him, the boy I once carried through thunderstorms, the boy I fed soup when he had fevers, the boy who used to run to me after school. Now he knelt like a man who had never known love. Slowly, I pulled my arm from his grasp. "Connor," I said softly, "you've spent 20 years telling me to stay silent." He swallowed hard, eyes wet. "Please, Mom." "For 20 years," I whispered, "you forbid me from speaking." I held his gaze, letting him see the truth he had feared. "Tonight," I said, "I speak only one word." He trembled. "What word?" I leaned close. "Justice." Vivienne screamed as the cuffs snapped on, while Connor collapsed, shaking, as officers escorted them out. When the door shut, the room exhaled in quiet relief, faces turning toward me with new respect. Then Evelyn stepped forward and opened her arms, and I walked into the familiar scent of lavender, books, and home. She whispered against my hair, voice breaking, "I'm so sorry, Syl. I should have come sooner." I closed my eyes. "You're here now." And she held me like a sister reunited after a lifetime apart. After the police cars left and the hall fell silent, Evelyn guided me to a quiet suite, her touch gentle and steady. For the first time in decades, I felt weightless. Jonathan's validated documents lay before us, his final request clear. "Evelyn must protect me. Once you sign this, everything Jonathan left goes to you, exactly as he intended." I looked at the stack of papers. Numbers so large they barely felt real. Properties, bonds, investments. His entire lifetime of work saved, guarded, meant for me. Me. The woman Connor and Vivienne locked in a basement. The woman they said was an embarrassment. The woman they tried to erase. My fingertips rested on the first page, but I did not reach for the pen. Instead, I folded the paperwork gently and pushed it back across the table. Evelyn blinked. Sil, what are you doing? I am honoring him, I said softly. And I am setting myself free at the same time. Her brows gathered, confusion mixing with worry. Sylvia, sweetheart, this is your security. You earned this trust from him. You should… No, I murmured. It was never meant for me to clutch like armor. Jonathan gave it because he feared what they would do to me. Now the truth is out. The danger is gone. And my breath trembled, not with sadness, but clarity. I don't want my final years to revolve around managing wealth. I want to spend it being alive. Evelyn sat very still, her hands laced together tightly. But Sil, if you give this back to me, people will think you're refusing his gift. I smiled the kind of small, quiet smile that comes only when a burden lifts. He trusted you more than anyone in the world. He wanted you to hold the family's dignity when he felt it slipping. Those were his words, Evelyn, not mine. He saw strength in you, and I see it too. Evelyn swallowed hard. And what about you? What I want, I said, is freedom. I want mornings without fear, evenings without footsteps overhead, days where I decide when I step outside and whom I speak to. That's enough for me. I took her hands. Return it to where it honors him best. Use it for the Ellington name. Use it to protect people like me, people who have no voice, no safety, no escape. Her breath hitched. Sylvia, you've always had the biggest heart, even when the world tried to crush it. I shook my head gently. I'm not giving anything up. I'm letting it go. A silence settled soft, glowing, almost holy. Evelyn closed her eyes and pressed my hands to her forehead the way she used to when we were children, exchanging secrets only we understood. When she looked up again, her decision was firm. I'll create a fund, she said. Not in your name, just as you want. Under the Ellington Foundation. It will help the people who are forgotten, the elderly with no family, orphans, women trapped in financial abuse, anyone who needs protection. My heart warmed, not pride, but peace. That is exactly what he would have wanted. Evelyn exhaled shakily. He would be so proud of you, not because you gave it up, but because nothing they did ever turned your soul bitter. I looked out the window at the Tennessee hills, soft and dusky under the early evening light. I lived in darkness for a long time, but I never let it become home. She reached for me suddenly, pulling me into a hug full of warmth and relief and all the missing years. Her voice was thick against my shoulder. You are still Sylvia of the riverbank, my girl who climbed trees and dared me to jump into the water first. But now you're stronger than both of us ever imagined. Tears rose in my throat, but they did not sting. They felt like release. When she stepped back, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand, she said something I had not heard in decades, not since before the basement walls closed in around my life. Come home with me. I stared at her, blinking. Home? Home, she repeated firmly. Come stay with me. You have lived alone in fear far too long. You deserve comfort. You deserve laughter. You deserve mornings with sunlight and dinners where someone asks about your day. My voice trembled more than I wanted it to. Evelyn, I don't want to be a burden. She laughed, a gentle, affectionate sound. You? A burden? Sil, you are the only person I ever wanted as family. I felt something break open inside me, then a cage that had stood for too many years. Then yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll come. Her smile stretched wide, bright and warm. Good. Because I'm not letting you spend one more night in that house or any house like it ever again. She poured 2 glasses of sparkling cider from a bottle left for reunion guests. She handed one to me, and we stood at the window, overlooking the dimming Tennessee horizon. To new beginnings, she said. I lifted my glass, letting the moment settle deep into my bones. To freedom, I replied. Our glasses touched with a soft, clear chime, a sound that felt like the first crack of dawn breaking after a lifetime of night. Together, we drank. Evelyn's house sat at the end of a quiet Tennessee road, wrapped in the kind of silence a person chooses. The first morning I woke there, real sunlight poured through the curtains, warm, golden, nothing like the thin gray strip that once crept into the basement. Her home was simple, lived in, scattered with books and family photos, a garden full of tomatoes and lavender, and a porch bench she had bought years ago, hoping I would one day sit beside her. Now I finally did. We slipped into an easy rhythm, not new, but recovered. Mornings brought strong coffee, sliced fruit, and old jazz drifting through the kitchen. Afternoons we walked the garden, laughing as she misnamed her plants on purpose. We spoke of Jonathan with tenderness, not grief stories I had never heard, reminders of the boy who had loved us both fiercely. "He loved you more fiercely than anyone I've ever known," she said one afternoon, her voice gentle. "He chose you every day, even on the days neither of you realized it." I pressed my hand to my heart. I always felt it, and I think that's why I survived what came after. Evenings were my favorite. We sat on the porch, 2 blankets over our legs, the cicadas humming like a lullaby stitched into the landscape. Evelyn would pour us each a small glass of wine, never too much, because our knees are too old to risk wobbling, she liked to tease. We talked about childhood, about the promise we made at 12 years old that we would never lose each other, about the years stolen by people who feared what truth might do to them, and about the quiet triumph of getting those years back. One evening, the kind where the sky turned a honeyed gold and the air smelled of cut grass, we set 2 glasses of red wine on the patio table. The light caught the wine, turning it into ruby pools that seemed to glow from within. Evelyn lifted her glass first. The air around us felt still, almost ceremonial. "To you," she said, her voice warm but steady. "To your freedom, to the courage it took to walk out of the dark." I looked at her, the friend, who had always been a sister, the only person who fought for me without needing proof, the woman who had held a place for me in her heart, even when she didn't know I was trapped. I lifted my own glass. "And to you," I said softly, "for holding the light for me all those years. I had no way to reach it." Our glasses met with a gentle chime, a sound so small yet so final it felt like a stone dropping into a still lake, quietly rippling everything around us. We sipped. The wine was rich, dark, grounding. Then the quiet fell between us, not heavy but peaceful, a quiet that did not require apology, a quiet that did not hide bruises or fear or sobs caught in the throat, a quiet that had room for breath, room for memory, room for healing. Evelyn set her glass down and leaned back. "Sil, do you ever think about what you lost?" I looked out at the garden, soft in the fading light, the porch, the breeze, the safe walls, and the woman beside me. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But then I remember something." She tilted her head. "What is it?" "That silence," I said slowly. "The silence they forced on me. It wasn't peace, it was a cage. I let the truth settle between us. They told me to be quiet so they could live comfortably with their lies. But the moment I spoke, I finally found comfort for myself." Evelyn nodded, eyes shining. "You found your voice again." I smiled the small, real kind. I found myself again. A breeze moved through the trees, carrying the scent of fresh earth. For a long moment, I watched the light fade. Then I whispered not to Evelyn, not to Jonathan, not even to myself, but to whatever force had carried me through the darkness without letting me surrender. They told me silence was the only way to keep the peace. But when I finally broke that silence, I found peace on my own terms. The sky dimmed, settling into the evening. A soft, steady quietness wrapped around us, warm, safe, earned. And for the first time in my life, the quiet belonged to me. Thank you for walking with me through every shadow and every truth reclaimed. Stories like mine are not only about pain, they are about dignity rediscovered and the courage to speak after a lifetime of being silenced. If any part of this journey reminded you of a grandmother, a mother, or an elder who deserved better, then I am grateful you stayed until the end. There are countless voices like mine, quiet for too long, waiting for someone to finally listen. If you want more true stories of women who rose from cruelty and proved that age never weakens courage, make sure you subscribe to Grandma True Stories. Your support keeps these voices alive, helps truth travel farther, and ensures no grandmother is ever forgotten again. Until the next story, stay gentle and honor the women who raised you.